AppDynamics Monitoring Architecture. In this video, we will discuss the fundamental components of AppDynamics. When we are done, you will understand the components and how they work together to provide useful performance information. The main components of AppDynamics application monitoring system is the controller. From the controller, you can see the performance information captured by a number of different agents. There are two primary kinds of agents: application server agent and machine agent. An app server agent sends information about application performance. A machine agent is connected to the host server and sends information about server-level metrics such as CPU utilization and host memory utilization. An optional agent is the End User Experience Monitoring, or EUEM. This provides direct client-side performance information about an individual's browser experience. Agents connect to the controller once a minute to update metrics. Note that the connection is one-way. The controller does not initiate anything. It never calls the agents or interrupts the agents. So how does the controller communicate with the agents? For example, you might be wondering, how does a controller update an agent configuration if it cannot call the agent? In that case, the controller sends the message by piggybacking on the response packet from the original connection the agent made. The controller not only receives and analyzes the information agents send, but also stores such information. This is done using the database that is internal to the controller. Now, for making the information in the controller available to you, there are two interface options. You can access it through our web application, which runs on an internal web server that the controller hosts. All of our training videos use that interface, so you may be already familiar with it. Or, if you wish, you can use the REST API and make any information in our web application available to other interfacing mechanisms of your choice. Any information inside the controller can be made available through a simple REST URL call from your own custom application. Now, let's take a look at our security features. Our security features can be summarized into 4 basic points. They are role-based authentication system, granular level of permissions, versatility to integrate with various authentication providers that have information about your users and groups, and lastly, compliance with European data standards. Now let's go over these points one by one. Role-based authentication. Role-based authentication and authorization is composed of 3 main elements: roles, groups, and permissions. These elements provide you with a flexible way of propagating lists of granular permissions across large sets of users and groups. Here's how it works. Users are assigned to one or more groups. Permissions or allowable actions are assigned to roles. Finally, roles are assigned to groups and/or individual users. For example, you have some A developers who need read-only access to an entire application. You create Developer A group and add the individual developers to it. Then you create a read-only role and add read-only permissions for the entire application. Finally, assign the read-only role to the new Developer A group. Typical roles are already pre-configured with uneditable permissions. You get 5 standard roles with typical permissions already set. In addition, you can create custom roles and manage access in a more granular way. Granular permissions. When you assign permissions, you combine various areas and levels to execute very specific access control. The levels of access are viewing, editing, deleting, creating, and configuring. When you create a permission for a role, you combine a level of access with the area of functionality. So for example, you can create a role that has view, edit, create access for baselines while restricting access to read-only for health rule configuration. The role can then be assigned to any number of groups or individuals. Integration with authentication providers. AppDynamics is flexible with managing its authentication information. This is to say, managing users, passwords, and groups. Of course, the controller database can store and manage all the authentication information, but many of you already have such information stored in your own authentication provider service. The good news is, you do not have to duplicate the effort just to set up AppDynamics users. AppDynamics integrates with various authentication services, so it can retrieve user information from LDAP, Active Directory, SAML, and others. Compliance with European data standards. Agents now comply with the European Data Protection Standards. What this means is you can set up your agents to prevent any collection of potentially sensitive data. You may be using SQL variable expansion via information points or data collectors, transaction snapshot information, payload information inside a business transaction. All these collections of potentially sensitive information can be turned off by flipping a single switch on the agents. Furthermore, when you flip the switch, the agents will no longer allow this setting to be configured via the networks, so it will not allow the controller or any other entity to change that configuration. This makes the agents a lot more resilient to any type of penetration attacks. So for example, if someone tries to hijack your agent and extract sensitive data by doing configuration injection, such an attack will be foiled. Now you should know the components of AppDynamics' application monitoring system and how they work to provide useful performance information, as well as security features.